company, and but especially the vast ocean of commoners amongst us, from which this topsy-turvy Friday will will actually reshape the future of the whole universe. And the man to reshape it is none other than our very own David Heathfield. Over to you, David.
Goodness, what a right royal introduction from Your Majesty, John Rowe. Because in today's session, all of us are wearing crowns, whether they're visible or not. And it's not too late if you've arrived without one, because you can put one on, find one, make one, whatever kind of crown. Babasi has a fine crown to wear. Louis, we're imagining it, because Louis is royal enough even without a crown on your head. We can see it. It's like a shining corona. Oh, look at Maria has fashioned a crown in no time at all. Wonderful, wonderful. Oh, yes, Mike has got his crown ready. Wherever you are, whether you're watching live here or on Facebook or catching up with the recording, put your crowns on, because this evening someone is going to get crowned. Or is it tomorrow? Welcome, everybody. I'm David Heathfield. I'm going to tell some royal stories from around the world. And these are warnings. Be warned. Because you, kings and queens listening, you are going to be warned. And you can tell me what you are warned about. So let's begin with a story that I learned from Ramya Iyer, a friend, a storyteller from India. And Ramya, well, I first came across the story in the book Royals, Wise and Otherwise that she contributed to, a book by Feast. But later I asked Ramya if I could tell it, and she gave me a personal telling of the story. So thank you, Ramya. And here is the story that Ramya told to me. What is the lesson for the king in the story? Let me just change the background a minute, because I want to introduce you to Lord Indra. Can you see? This is Lord Indra. Lord Indra is the ruler of the heavens, and he rides on his white elephant. And if you look closely, you can see that Lord Indra's body is completely covered in eyes. There are eyes on his hands, on his legs, on his arms, on his chest. Lord Indra can see everything that is going on everywhere. He also wields thunderbolts. Lord Indra is all powerful. So let me tell you a story from the Bhil people of India. The story of Rajkumari Sundari, the princess farmer. I'll say story, story. Take your microphones, switch them on, and you can respond by saying, tell us a story. Story, story.
Tell us
Tell
a
us a story.
Princess farmer. Rajkumari Sundari. She wanted to be a farmer. It's all that she ever dreamed of. I want to be a farmer, she always said, but her father the king paid no attention. But as she grew older, she said it again, I want to be a farmer. And when the king finally said to her, my daughter, princess, it is time for you to prepare to take on your royal duties, she said, Father, there's only one thing I want. I want to be a farmer.
Farmer.
My daughter cannot be a farmer. My daughter is a princess. A princess must have royal duties, not look after the land. But father, I want to be a farmer, not to be a princess. Well, her father flew into a rage. No daughter of mine will sow seed on the land. And he said, "Leave my palace, my daughter. Leave and never, never return." Well, she took him at his word. She left the palace with a small bag full of seeds that she had gathered over the years. And she walked away with tears streaming down her face, and she came to the forest. And there in the forest she cleared a little bit of land without harming the plants and the trees, making sure that everything should grow that was there. And she looked after the animals. She made friends with 3 creatures: a cat, a parrot, and a spider. And these 3 creatures helped her to build her little farm where she grew crops. The cat protected the crops. The parrot would fly everywhere and listen and bring news to Rajkumari Sundari. And the spider protected the little house of wood that she built. She was happy with her 3 friends. And when the season had passed, the crops had grown, and she had plenty to eat. Now, although she was a farmer, she was careful about the people who lived on the land, and she saw that they were going hungry. The king kept too much of the food and the wealth for himself. So she went with the crops that she didn't need, and she shared them with the people who were hungry, and the people were grateful. And when the news reached the king that she was doing so well, "My daughter should come back to me. What can I do?" The king went to Lord Indra, the ruler of the heavens, and asked him for help. "I am Lord Indra." Can everybody say that? "I am Lord Indra. I will make sure that your daughter leaves that forest. I will send down a drought. All of the crops will dry up on the land, and then she will come home." And Lord Indra, true to his word, made a drought come. But the princess farmer had heard news. Now, do you remember how she heard the news? Anybody? Yes, King Michael. It was that parrot. The parrot who flew there in the heavens with its bright feathers, colourful wings, had heard the news and flown back to Rajkumari Sundari and told her the news that there would be a drought. What can we do? But the princess had an idea. We will leave the forest. We will leave the forest and go down to the riverside, and there we can grow our crops, and there will be water from the river. And there in the drought they grew their crops. A new farm was built, and she brought with her the cat, the parrot, and the spider to protect the house. Well, the crops grew, and she brought water from the river, and although there was a drought, the crops grew successfully. But across the land, the people suffered. With no rain, their crops had failed, and they were hungry. But the princess farmer was kind. She shared the bounty and all of the harvest that she had grown with the people who were hungry. But the word reached her father, the king, and was he happy? No. He went again to the heavens and asked, "I am Lord Indra. Yes, I will make sure your daughter comes back to you. I will send down a flood with my thunderbolts. There will be a storm. The river will rise and wash away your daughter's farm." Well, who was listening? Yes, of course, the parrot. And the bright, colourful parrot flew down and told the Princess Farmer. Well, the Princess Farmer said, "We must leave." And together with the cat and the spider and the dear parrot, she travelled to the mountain slopes. Well, there were great storms. The rains fell heavily and washed down the mountainside. But the Princess Kumari Sundari, well, she was careful. She diverted the channel so the water flowed past. The water flooded the land. The river rose and broke its banks. The people's crops were washed away. But Rajkumari Sundari had enough. And after the floods, the people, the hungry farmers came, and she gave them the food that was surplus, shared it readily. And when the word reached the king, was the king, her father, happy? No, indeed. He went again to the heavens and asked everybody, "I am Lord Indra. Yes, I will make sure your daughter comes back to you. I will send down a plague of rats. The rats will eat the crops." Well, the parrot flew down and told Princess Farmer, "Oh, what can we do? What can we do? Who do you think can help everybody? Open your mics and tell us what you think." Oh, what did you say, Louis? Who's going to help? Is it going to be the spider?
Nope.
Is it going to be the parrot?
No.
What do you think, King Michael?
The cat.
The cat! "I know," said the cat. "I will help." And the cat went and found all the forest cats across the land. And all of the cats came, the friend cats and the rival cats. And the cats caught all of those rats and ate them up. Well, she had plenty. She grew plenty on the mountain slopes. But other people had suffered with the infestation of rats, and they had no crops, and they were hungry. And the farmers came, and Rajkumari Sundari shared what she had grown. But her father, the king, was he happy? No, he was furious. He went up to the heavens and asked, yes, you know, "I am Lord Indra. I will send a plague of birds who will eat all of the seeds before they are planted." Well, the parrot flew back as fast as it could and told the Princess Farmer, "What can I do? What can I do?" Who do you think's going to help this time? Yes, John. That's right, Louis. It was the spider. "I will help," said the spider. And he left the house, and the spider went and spread word among all of the spidery beings across the land. And all the spiders came, and they wove a web that was so thick that it covered all of the ground, but let the light through. And so the seeds could grow. And the birds flew down and tried to peck through that thick, shining web, but they couldn't, because the web was so thick and strong. And the crops grew. Now, the birds picked the seeds of all of the other farmers, and they were hungry. They had grown nothing. But Rajkumari Sundari shared the plenty with the people who were hungry. And the king was beside himself. "My daughter must come back to me. She is not a farmer." And he went up to the heavens and spoke to, "I am Lord Indra. Oh, Lord Indra, please, please, my daughter must come back to me." "Come with me," said Lord Indra. And Lord Indra went with the king to the mountain slopes, where good and kind Rajkumari Sundari was feeding the hungry people. Lord Indra said, "Look, your daughter is doing your duty. Your task is to care for the people of your land, and you have no regard for them. Yet your daughter feeds them in spite of all of the plagues, the floods, and the droughts. You have much to learn from your daughter. I will help you no longer." And Lord Indra returned to the heavens, from where he saw everything, and rode on his white elephant. And the king fell on his knees before his daughter and said, "Oh, my daughter, you have done well. I have much to learn from you. But you are a princess. Come back with me to the palace, and you will rule after me." "Father, have you not heard? I am a farmer, and I will remain with the animals, look after all of the creatures of the land. They are my friends. I will grow food and share it, and you can help me, Father." And her father finally learned his lesson, and went home and ruled more gently and more kindly, and never tried to force his daughter again to do what she was not destined to do. She was the Princess Farmer, and she became known as Kunsari, Kansari, the goddess of farming among the Bhil people of India. So there we are. This is the first warning for kings and queens of the evening. So, kings and queens who are joining us, welcome Queen Mechthild, Queen Maria, King Michael, King Louis, King Babasi, Queen Tammy, King Walid, Queen Simon, everybody, King John. What do you learn from the warning in this story? Turn on your mics and tell us, what's the warning for the kings and queens?
As you stated, kings have an obligation to look after their people and to help them with things that they cannot help themselves.
Thank you for wise words, King Babasi. Would anybody like to add something?
I would think don't argue with your daughters if they're single-minded enough to know what they want out of life.
Ah, wise King John. Any more thoughts from anyone else? Several months ago, I was asked to go to a play reading organised by a friend of mine, and I didn't know before I arrived what the play would be. Queen Amna is here in the room now. Hi, Queen Amna. Well, the play was called King Charles III by a British playwright called Mike Bartlett. And I was assigned the role of Prince William. Yes, it's hard to believe, isn't it, that a man of my age could play a young man. But it was such fun. I won't tell you what happened at the end, but I can tell you it was an amazing play. And the film, King Charles III, is available on Vimeo to watch. And I'm going to be watching it this evening before the big day tomorrow, because it's such a great story and a very surprising ending if you haven't heard it. But at the beginning, it begins with the moment when the Queen dies. Even though this play was written many years ago, it takes place between the moment the Queen dies, the funeral of the Queen, and the coronation. And that's the span of the time of the play. So it was incredibly prescient. It was just days before the Queen died. that I did this play reading. Near the beginning, Prince Charles, who's just become king but not crowned, says, "My whole existence has, like most of us, been built upon the ones who gave me birth. And now they're gone. That's it. First Dad, then Mum. I'm alone." Destiny. Rajkumari Sundari was destined to rule, but she fought against that assumed destiny and took her own course, directed her own life, and looked after the people better than any monarch. There's much to learn. What will King Charles do? We know that he's interested in the environment, but he's been sworn to be neutral. Well, I wonder if he'll be wise. I have a question for you. Can you buy wisdom?
No.
You can't buy wisdom? Wisdom is not for sale, you might think. Well, I'm going to tell you a story that I learned from a dear friend called Marat Mukashev. And Marat comes from Kazakhstan. And the story I'm going to tell you is the story called The Seller of Wisdom. Can wisdom be bought and sold? Let's find out in this story. In the story, there is a barber, and the barber uses a sharp razor. Be warned. Are you ready, everybody? Turn on your microphones. Story.
Tell us a story.
Tell us a story.
Long ago, there was a king. And the king looked out of his palace window to the square below and saw that many people were gathering. There was a crowd, and he called his advisor and said, "Why is there a crowd of people in the square below?" And the advisor said, "Oh, down there is a seller of wisdom, and the people have come to buy wisdom from him." "A seller of wisdom," said the king. "I will take a bag of gold and buy some wisdom." Well, his advisor was against the idea, but the king didn't listen and went down to the square below, down the palace steps. And the crowds parted, and the king soon stood before an old wrinkled man who sat on the ground and looked up at the king with bright shining eyes. "Who are you?" "Well, I am the king. I will buy some wisdom from you." "I see," said the old seller of wisdom. "You are the king, so before I give you the wisdom, you must give me a bag of gold." "Wait," said the king. "First I will hear the wisdom, and then I will give you the gold. If I decide that the wisdom is wise." "Ah, very well." And the bright eyes shone. "Here is your wisdom. Never act before you think. Always think before you act." Can we all say that? Never act
before you think.
Always
think before you act.
Well, the king was satisfied and handed over the bag of gold. And the old wrinkled man rose from the ground and left the square. The king went up the palace steps and went inside. Now, the old seller of wisdom had told the king that he should write these words on the walls of the palace everywhere. So the king ordered for this to be done. Inscribed on all the walls were those words, but his advisor was not impressed. Everywhere across the palace, in all sorts of lettering, were the words. What were they? Never act before you think. Always think before you
act.
Well, some time passed. It was the beginning of May. And his advisor came to the king and said, "Oh, great king, your winter beard has grown long. It's time you had a shave. Shall I call the barber?" "Yes," said the king, "and your beard is long too." Well, the barber was sent for and appeared at the palace and came up the palace steps. He was a humble man, but there on the steps he was met by that royal advisor. "Barber, show me the razor that you will use to shave the king." The barber took out the same razor he always used. It had a wooden handle. "That old razor," said the advisor, "that's not fit to shave a king. Here, good man, use this razor instead." And he produced the most beautiful razor made of shining gold. Well, the barber took the golden razor, it certainly looked right and royal, and walked up the steps and inside. The king sat on his throne and said to the barber, "Shave me." Well, the barber stepped up to the king and took out that shining golden razor and was about to start his work, but then hesitated, stopped. "Get on with it, man," said the king. The barber slowly closed the golden razor and put it away, and took out his old razor with the wooden handle and began to shave the king. "Wait," said the king. "I saw you a moment ago about to shave me with a fine golden razor, and now you are shaving me with this old wooden-handled razor." "Yes," said the barber. "Why?" said the king. "I looked at the walls. I saw the words. Never act before you think. Always think before you act. I thought to myself, I don't know this golden razor. I don't know its secrets. I trust my wooden-handled razor. The blade is sharp. I've always used it." "Who gave you that golden razor?" said the king. "It was given to me on the steps of the palace by your advisor." The king thought long and hard. He looked at the words on the palace wall. "Shave me." The barber continued to shave the king and gave him a fine trimmed beard, almost as elegant as the beards worn in this room. And when the work was completed, the king rose and went to call for his guards. "Guards, fetch my advisor here." The advisor entered the room and looked surprised. The king said to him, "My friend, you need a shave." "Barber, shave him." "Well, the advisor tried to escape from the guard's clutches, but they pinned him down into the chair." And the barber began his work. "Use the golden razor that this advisor gave to you," said the king. Well, no sooner had that shave begun than the head of that advisor drooped. The poison from the razor's blade had penetrated his skin, and he had lost his life and travelled to the next world. The king thanked the barber for his work. The king went to the window and looked down to the square and waited. For many days, months, and years he waited. But that seller of wisdom never returned. The king had had the wisdom he needed and remembered it for the rest of his reign. What was the wisdom? Never act before you
think.
Always
Always
think
think
before
before
you
you act.
Rulers, leaders, chiefs, queens, kings, everywhere, pay heed. Well, there's a lesson for a king and a queen. Would anybody like to comment if you learned something from this story? Because after all, why do we tell all these stories about kings and queens? Aren't we all kings and queens? The kings and queens of our own lives, of our own worlds that we live in? Another line from that play by Mike Bartlett, it really is one of my favourites. Towards the end, King Charles, well, his right to the crown is threatened. He says, "I'll never give the crown away. For me, it's duty and my calling, things to do. I know, don't ask me how, that I will be the greatest king of all." Take care. Take care. I will be the greatest king of all. Be warned. The next story I'm going to tell you, we're going to travel into the forest, the tropical forest. You know stories about Anansi. Anansi stories come from West Africa, but they're also told in many other parts of the world, including Jamaica. And the story I'm going to tell you now seems to be told in Jamaica as well as, I'm sure, in many parts of West Africa, and is now told all across the world. Please join in. Where is the wisdom? What's the warning? Here's to you all, kings and queens. King Tiger. King Tiger thought, "I am the greatest king of all." King Tiger padded into the village where the Princess Adawa lived. Oh, she was beautiful. Princess Adawa came out of her house, and King Tiger said, "Princess Adawa, will you be my wife? Will you be my queen?" And Princess Adawa said, "I will marry the man, the one who can prove himself the strongest." "Well, I am the strongest. I am the greatest king of all," said Tiger. "Let's see," said Princess Adawa. At that moment, Spider appeared. Anansi the spider with his 8 legs appeared and said, "I am stronger than King Tiger." "What?" said the tiger. "Perhaps I will marry you, Princess Adawa." Princess Adawa went into her house. King Tiger was furious. Now after that, little Anansi wasn't seen for a while. But one day King Tiger was padding through the forest, and there under a tree he saw little Spider Anansi sitting. "Anansi," said Tiger, "Anansi, I haven't seen you for a while." "Oh yes, great King Tiger. I can't walk, you see. I've hurt one of my legs. Look, this stick is the stick I need to help me get around, but I get so tired." "You call me King Tiger. I am stronger than you." "Oh yes, beautiful tiger, magnificent tiger, you are the strongest of all." "Well then come with me and tell Adawa that I am the strongest." "I would, said Anansi, but I cannot walk. Beautiful tiger, magnificent tiger, just one thing I ask, that you carry me on your back. Your back is strong, your fur is sleek. Won't you carry me to Princess Adawa, and then I will tell her? Oh, yes, said Tiger. My back is strong, my fur is sleek. Climb on. And Tiger carried Anansi on his back and padded through the forest. But then Anansi said, and you can join in, "Oh, beautiful tiger, magnificent tiger, just one thing I ask. I left my stick behind under the tree, and without my stick I cannot walk. You have such keen eyesight, tiger. Would you find my stick for me?" "Oh, yes, my eyesight is the keenest of all." And Tiger turned back and came to the tree, and Tiger found the stick and passed it to Anansi. Tiger padded through the forest towards Adawa's village. And Anansi spoke again. Are you ready? "Oh, beautiful tiger, magnificent tiger, just one thing I ask. Your fur is so sleek and so beautiful that I keep slipping. If you used your sharp claw, such sharp claws you have, to cut a vine from the tree, then I could put the vine round your neck and hold on tight." "My claws are the sharpest of all. No one has sharper claws than me." And King Tiger cut a vine and passed it to Anansi, who put the vine around the tiger's neck and balanced on the tiger's back as the tiger went padding towards Adawa's village. But before they arrived one more time, "Oh, beautiful tiger, magnificent tiger, just one thing I ask. Oh, even the vine is slipping on your sleek fur. You have such strong teeth, tiger. Won't you put the vine between your strong, sharp teeth?" "My teeth! Let's see your teeth, everybody. My teeth are the strongest and sharpest of any." And he put the vine between his sharp teeth, and Anansi held on tight, and the tiger rode out of the forest and into the village. And at that moment, Anansi took the stick and struck the tiger hard on the tiger's back. And the tiger roared in pain and went running through the village, and all of the people, hearing the roar of King Tiger, came running out of their houses to see how little Anansi rode that tiger into the village. And Anansi struck the tiger again, and the tiger roared. Can you unmute and roar like tiger? 3, 2, 1. Can I hear you roaring, Louis? Everybody. Oh, that's terrifying. And the people came out, and Adawa stepped outside her house, and she looked. And at that moment, Tiger realized that he had been outsmarted. Tiger was humiliated. The vine between his teeth, bridled like a mounted horse. Tiger's head hung low in shame. And Anansi climbed down and led powerful King Tiger, not so powerful now, and tied him with the vine to a tall tree. And Anansi stepped over to Adawa and took her by the hand and walked inside her house to become her husband. I wonder how long King Tiger wore his crown after that. Another warning. I will be the greatest king of all. Oh. Kings and queens around the world, unmute and tell us, what's the warning?
Don't believe your own hype.
Tiger, be not proud, though some have called thee mighty and great.
Ooh. Where's that from, Mike?
Is death be not proud? Yeah, so death be not proud, though some have called thee mighty and great.
Ah, yes. Death be not proud, but tiger be not proud. Fantastic. I've got time, have I, for one last story? And this story comes
Always
from
got time for
Myanmar.
one last story.
Thank you, King John. This story comes from Myanmar. I learnt this story from Pleng, a young woman, and then I did a bit of research and found out a bit more about the story. And here's my version of Wise Masabe. And I'm going to stop before the end so you wise kings and queens can try to solve the puzzle if you haven't heard it before. Kings can become tyrants, can't they? Let's just travel to Myanmar, because this story takes place next to a beautiful river. So here's a picture from Myanmar. There we are. Look at that. Green, the river, the sunset. Story.
Tell us a
Tell us
story.
a
Tell us a
story.
story.
Tell us a story.
There was once a young woman called Masabe, and she lived with her mother, and they were poor. They had some land, they grew some vegetables, they lived beside a river. Although they had food, they were poor because that land was ruled over by a tyrant, a cruel king. This king took so much money in taxes and rent from the people who worked on the land. He was powerful, and this king in his palace had 300 wives. Yes, you heard me right. One day this king rode on his elephant along beside the river. He was proud, cruel, greedy, and dishonest. And as he rode along beside the river, he saw that young woman, Masabe, working on the land. He rode on past her, thinking to himself, she would make a good wife. When he reached the small house where Masabe lived with her mother, he stopped, and from the elephant's back, he spoke to Masabe's mother. Your daughter, what is her name? My daughter's name is Masabe. Your daughter will be my next wife. Well, Masabe's mother was fearful. She loved her daughter, and she knew how cruel and dishonest the king was. Please, no. Please don't marry my daughter. How can you refuse when you are in debt to me? Well, it was true. Please, is there nothing that can be done? Please do not marry my daughter. Ha ha, said the king. Very well. Tomorrow I will return and there will be a game. The game will decide whether your daughter marries me or not. And laughing, the king turned and rode back along beside the river. Well, Masabe returned from her work on the fields, and she told her mother told her what had happened. Don't worry, mother, said Masabe. Now, Masabe was young, but Masabe was as wise as you good rulers, kings and queens everywhere. And she thought, a game. The next day the king returned. This time his elephant had been decorated in cloths and silks of blue and green and gold. The king himself was wearing shining robe and a crown-like turban. And behind him marched his soldiers in shining uniforms. They paraded along beside the river and arrived at Masabe's house. The king climbed down from his elephant and stood face to face with Masabe's mother and Masabe herself. You, Masabe, will be my new wife. Masabe looked at the king in the eye. She was not afraid. My mother told me there would be a game. Ha ha, yes, said the king. A game. And the king took a bag and said, you see this bag made of silk? Inside this bag there are 2 pebbles. One pebble is white and one pebble is black. Masabe, put your hand inside the bag and take one pebble. If you take the white pebble, you don't have to marry me, and your mother will have no more debts. If you take the black pebble, however, you will marry me, and your mother will have no more debts. In either case, your mother wins. Will you play? No, said Masabe's mother, my daughter do not play. She did not trust the king. But Masabe looked at that cruel tyrant in the eye. She saw into his dark heart. And Masabe knew at that moment that in the bag there were 2 pebbles indeed. But she knew for sure that both of the pebbles were black.
Black.
I will play, said Masabe. I will play. So, wise rulers around the world, kings and queens, what do you think Masabe's going to do? How is she going to get out of the situation knowing that there are 2 black pebbles inside the bag? If you've heard the story before, keep it to yourself. But would anybody like to hazard a guess of what Masabe's going to do?
Pick a pebble and then empty the bag.
Take out one pebble and then?
Empty the bag.
Empty the bag, what, to show?
The pebble that's inside. And if it's a black pebble, it must be a white pebble in her hand.
Oh, I like your thinking. I like your thinking, King Babasi. Another idea from someone else.
I think she should just palm a white pebble and put it in the bag and pretend that she's pulled that one out.
Ah, she can find a white pebble, maybe from just by the river where they live, perhaps.
And then the king will have to show, if he argues with her, he will have to show that there are 2 black pebbles, and therefore
may be his downfall. After all, what will his guards do if they find out? Will his guards stay true to the king if they find out he's a liar? Maybe they already know.
As true as the pebbles in the bag.
Ah.
You keep mentioning the river. Maybe she should pick the pebble and drop it accidentally in the river and say, oh, gosh, sorry about that. What's left?
Ooh.
The river's there.
Let's find out. Such wise kings and queens in this room. Story.
Tell us a story.
There's a
I will
story.
play, said Masabe. And the king held open the bag, and the king was proud, and the king was certain that this would be his next wife. There was no doubt in his mind, but Masabe reached into the bag, and she took one of the pebbles in her fist. And she looked at it. Oh, I am happy. I do not have to marry the king, and my mother has no more debts. And she turned, and she leapt, and she danced, and she danced, and she danced, and she dropped that pebble in the river. What have you done? Said the king. Oh, I am sorry, great king. I was so happy not to have to marry you that I dropped the pebble into the water. But how will we know which pebble you took? I have an idea, said Masabe. Look inside the bag and see what pebble remains, and then we will all know which pebble I took. And at that moment, the king's face fell. He knew that at that moment he had been outsmarted, that Masabe was wiser than him. Humiliated, furious, the king climbed onto his elephant and rode away along the bank of the river, followed by his guards in shining uniforms. And Masabe called, O king, my wife, my mother has no more debts. My mother has no more debts. And Masabe and her mother, they danced, and they danced, and they
Dance.
Ah,
Oh, if only tyrants could be dealt with so simply. It takes a lot of wisdom. So, from the story of King Tiger, perhaps we learn, don't be easily flattered. But from the story of Masabe, what's the warning for kings and queens there?
I think they should be honest.
Thank you, Mechthild. To be honest.
Or maybe marry stupid women.
Dangerous words, King Michael, dangerous words. Well, it's time for one of you to be crowned. You have all shown great wisdom today. It's hard for me to choose. Maybe it's not for me to choose who is wise enough to be crowned. But let's find out who feels ready to have the crown put on their head. King Louis, are you ready to be crowned? Louis?
Yes, I'm here.
Will you be our king?
Yes, I will, yeah.
Okay, so here are the words, King Louis. Listen carefully. These words are the words which will be spoken tomorrow, more or less. Again from Mike Bartlett's script. King Louis, will you solemnly promise and swear to govern the peoples of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, Canada, Australia and New Zealand, and of your possessions and other territories? Will you promise?
Pardon?
Will you promise and swear to govern all of the peoples?
Yes, I will, yeah.
Thank you very much. And the next question, King Louis, is will you to your power cause law and justice in mercy to be executed in all your judgments? Will you be a merciful king?
Yeah.
A kind king?
Yeah.
That's what we need. In that case, I crown you King Louis!
fantastic, David. What a magnificent evening. What a very royal evening, a very cautionary royal evening, and utterly appropriate and magnificent for this weekend. Thank you, David. And
it's a pleasure and an honour.
And your words brought out a pageantry that we didn't even need pictures. We were given word pictures, such magnificence. I shall ride. I think I'll ride up. I'm in my Romanian home at the moment, so I feel like I shall ride up and down the mountain on a white elephant. So, what we got coming up? Well, Tuesday, obviously, as every Tuesday, 5 o'clock UK time and Irish time, and we have our young international tellers, where we have our royalty from around the world, usually princesses. The princes seem to be out doing other things, but all princes obviously are welcome. But our young international tellers will be telling their tales. And next Friday, we have something very different, very unusual, because it is the opening of the East Anglian Storytelling Festival. So I'm going, which happens to be kicking off at 6 o'clock in the evening. So I'm going to be there at the opening of the East Anglian Storytelling Festival, and we are going to broadcast the first hour of the festival. So with music and stories. So I think that's going to be worth a watch, isn't it? Definitely worth a watch. Let's hope I can hold the phone steady, or someone gives me a little stand. We will be, of course, broadcasting with the advanced technology of the mobile phone, which as I'm talking now. So what a fantastic week we've got coming up. So thank you once more. A big round of applause for our Master of Ceremonies, our Chancellor. Thank you, David. And thank you, everyone who came and supported them. Thank you, everyone who put on your crowns. And, of course, thank you, Your Majesty, King Louis.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, guys. I know I'm here. I can. So I'm gonna go now.
Okay, bye-bye. Have a lovely evening.
Have a good evening of swimming, King Louis.
Enjoy your royal
Thank
swim.
you, Babsy.
Yes.
Thank you, David.
And
Bye,
good evening.
guys.
Oh,
Bye.
bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye,
Good
everyone. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you.
And do, if you're watching, of course you're watching, do share this over the weekend so people can enjoy royal stories for the moment. Thanks,
Okay.
John. Thanks for having me. Cheers.
Brilliant, David. Thank you. And please come and all visit us again. Right. But okay, bye-bye, wherever you are in this wide world.